It's finally official. Nintendo just announced the Nintendo Switch 2 with a new streamlined design, a bigger screen, and a bunch of new games. And while Nintendo was light on the hardware details during its live stream, we now know everything about what's powering the new Switch. Let's dig in. First up, the name. We were hoping Nintendo would take this opportunity to rebrand its console, maybe shedding the Switch moniker for something fresh. No dice. It's still called the Nintendo Switch. Now onto the size. The original base model of the Nintendo Switch measures approximately 4 inches high and 9.4 inches long, with Joy-Cons attached, according to Nintendo's official system specs. Switch 2 is a little bigger at 6.5 inches high and 10.7 inches long, also with Joy-Cons attached. The larger size also makes the Switch 2 weigh about 1.18 lbs, which is a little heavier than the original Switch's 1.88-pound heft. So yeah, it's pretty similar to the original Switch. Remember, this thing is supposed to be a miniaturized version of the Nintendo Switch. As for the screen, the Switch 2's capacitive touchscreen is 7.9 inches, bigger than both the original Switch, 6.2 inches, and the Switch OLED, 7 inches. But it's back to LCD. The new display also got a bump in resolution to 1080p from 720p and supports a variable refresh rate or VRR up to 120 Hz. However, Nintendo didn't provide any of the fine details on the screen's brightness, so it might not be as impressive as something like the Steam Deck OLED. And while it's technically not a feature of the screen itself, the thinner bezel should make it just feel bigger as well. Another notable change is the Switch 2's Joy-Cons work a bit differently than the original Switch. They magnetically attach to the sides of the console and don't produce that satisfying snap like they used to. The Switch 2 also makes use of those Hall effect joysticks that will keep them from wearing out after extended use. Each Joy-Con has a built-in accelerometer and gyroscope. The Joy-Con 2 controllers also have wireless connectivity via Bluetooth 3.0 and a new C button for game chat, a Discord-like chat feature that allows players to communicate with each other without having to unmute their microphones. Nintendo hasn't said whether or not these controls will work with the original Switch or whether or not the original controls will work with the Switch 2. Each Joy-Con 2 has a built-in battery that requires around 3.5 hours to fully charge, although Nintendo didn't say exactly how long the battery lasts. Oh, and the Switch 2 also features a kickstand, which could help it double as a tablet a little easier than the original Switch could. The Switch 2 also comes with 256 GB of storage, considerably more than the original Switch's 32 GB of storage. If that sounds a little small for you, you can still expand the storage with an SD card. The original Switch supported MicroSD HC and MicroSD XC UHSI cards up to 2 TB, while the Switch 2 supports up to 2 TB MicroSD Express cards, which offer much faster read speeds. For the Switch 2, Nintendo has moved the SD card slot under the kickstand on the back of the console, which means you won't have to deal with blocking the cooling vents like you did on the original Switch. Nintendo also revealed the first look at the Switch 2's dock, and it looks pretty much identical to the original Switch dock. But it's a little bigger to match the size of the new console. It comes in at 4.5 inches tall, 7.9 inches wide, and 2 inches thick. On the back, there are 2 USB ports, an HDMI port, and an Ethernet port. And when you slide your system into it, it will output video up to 4K at 60 frames per second to your TV. Unlike the original Switch, the Switch 2 dock has a wired Ethernet port built in, so you won't have to buy an adapter if you want to connect to the internet through cable. What's interesting about the Switch 2's dock is that it seems to support future-proof Thunderbolt 4 instead of plain old USB-C. The Switch 2 is also sporting a new custom processor made by NVIDIA. According to leaked details gleaned from the console's motherboard, it's supposedly a custom Tegra T239 processor. What does that mean? Well, the original Switch uses a Tegra X1 processor based on a 2015 chip, so that's already a big jump forward. What's more, leaks suggest the Switch 2 will employ upscaling technology that can boost 720p resolution visuals up to 4K when docked, using machine learning techniques. That's in line with reports that suggested the Switch 2 would be on par with current-gen consoles like the PS5 and Xbox Series S, but not next-gen systems like the PS5 Pro or Xbox Series X. Later rumors suggested the console would be comparable to the previous generation of consoles like the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Still, it's important to remember that most modern games aren't going to max out at 4K or 60 FPS on a console this small. But it's nice to see Nintendo upgrading its hardware in a way that will let the system age gracefully for the next few years. That said, leaks also suggest the Switch 2 will come with 12 gigabytes of RAM, and if Nintendo's prior console upgrade is anything to go off of, you might be able to get a good few years out of this thing before performance starts to degrade. But what about Wi-Fi? The Switch 2 supports Wi-Fi 6 connectivity, which should make downloading games faster if you have a beefy internet connection. It also means screen sharing your games over game chat should be smoother too. We also learned more about the Switch 2's microphone array, which will be used for its Discord-like game chat feature. The built-in microphone has noise cancellation, echo cancellation, and auto-gain control, so you don't have to fuss with settings for it to pick up everyone in the room. And what about battery life? The Switch 2 will last around 2 to 6.5 hours depending on the games you play. That's actually a tiny bit less than the launch Switch 1 models, which can run from 2.6 to 6.5 hours, and considerably less than the updated models that last 4.5 to 9 hours. Blame the Switch 2's bigger and better screen for making you charge it a little more often. Thankfully, it can be charged up to full in the same 3 hours it took the original Switch. Oh, and you can also set the System S battery charge to slow down at around 90% to preserve the System S battery life. So overall, the Switch 2 is a substantial improvement over the original Switch. It's a little bit bigger, packs a more powerful processor, a sharper screen, Hall effect joysticks, and a built-in mouse sensor. There's a lot to look forward to here. Let us know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more updates.